Welcome everyone to the Magical Frequency. On today's episode, it is just going to be a stream of consciousness. It's early this morning and I wanted to respond to this video that Goobie and Doobies posted, which I thought was fantastic because it just draws more awareness to the things that I have been talking about on my channel, and the fact that he is a neuroscientist and he is speaking on these things in such a way that is questioning what is going on in the grand scheme of this actual reality and how consciousness is all created. If you are new here, my name is Christy and I am a simulation theorist, so I will be explaining my purview and my outlook through this lens. It's going to be my personal stream of consciousness reacting to that video. I'm not going to play his video, but I'm just going to quickly recap the stories that rendition on how they've happened to me in my life. The video is about an hour long. Check it out if you are interested. It is really good. He talks about not being able to explain certain things with like science or logic in his video of these things that happened to him. He first goes on to talk about dreams and that he's been having strange dreams recently that he can't really explain. Substances that alter this, for example, if he doesn't use things like leaf gummies, he can dream better, which I could understand because when you use like those CBDs or the sleeping gummies, actually those ones that are medicinal purpose, they can knock you out and turn your consciousness off a little bit. And not to say that people don't enjoy that from time to time, but if you are looking to dream, scaling back some of those other substances so you can dream more vividly. He goes on to talk about some of his dreams and how they relate to his actual reality. And that type of thing has happened to me, and most recently I have been on into the world of dreams, if you will, and it's by different ways, people poking me in different ways. Last year, went out and got a tattoo, and I talk about it sometimes on my channel. I see the crystal visions. I keep my visions to myself. It's from the song Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. And there's just so many different connected things that I keep seeing. I just recently started following this gentleman, and he just posted a video about the hypnagogic state and phosphenes. And not to say that he hasn't posted this type of content before, but he literally just posted this, and I just posted another video about this. So I feel like the world is extremely connected and consciousness is starting to wake up to some of these things. So I found it extremely interesting that he's talking about phosphenes in the dreams, and I'm finally getting connected to other people that are exploring this kind of thing, but in a lucid dream aspect, not in where they particularly think it's a simulation like I do, and that phosphenes are just a part of the process when you're plugging into this specific reality, which I do think is all one mind, all from consciousness, as this doctor states by the end of his video. He is now convinced that there is something else going on that science cannot explain. So that's what that piece of consciousness is to me, that we're all starting to sort of see these weird things that are going on, what I like to call glitches. We call glitches in the simulation, errors, or just faulty code, whatever you want to call it, where we're able to see past the veil that we are used to seeing through. He's starting to lift this veil, and you can tell in this video is grappling with understanding how to articulate himself. He doesn't want to come off as if he is a lunatic, which I completely understand. I tried to do that myself, but recently with my channel, I have been no holds barred, because why not? Why not tell the truth in my reality for what it is? Worth me not telling my side of what I have seen, my personal visions. I have not been keeping to myself per the tattoo that I have honestly, the tattoos, all of the tattoos, are reminders that we are living in a simulation, that this is an environment that we are able to come into and be able to control to a certain degree, or manipulate, if you will, or whatever, experience in such a way that is evil, but in such a way that this is your playground, this is your earth field to be able to come down and experience. Several tattoos to remind me that this is a journey, that we are in a world simulation environment, that we are all one consciousness. This tattoo, like 4 years ago, I think, because I felt like I kept falling asleep to that. And that's the part that we all have to remember, is that we fall asleep to these concepts if we allow the outer world to convince us otherwise. So I got this many moons ago. It was funny because I always felt like I could use it at some point to explain like myself to somebody. I don't know what that means, but that there's a journey to be had. Like, wiggly line is the journey, and it's not always a straight line journey, and that's what this simulated environment is meant to be. It's meant to be a body of experiences, and then you do come to your final awakening, and then you start it all over again. It is just like this cycle of learning and unlearning itself. And then of course I have the classic Matrix has you, and this is literally a direct reminder that we are actually living in a simulation, and we should probably think about things in a much different purview than we've been thinking about them, and we will start to see these things like Goobie and Doobies have been talking about. How about dreams? Let's get back to dreams. Let me riff on that a little bit. My grandmother was a very spiritual person. She was extremely into God. I didn't always believe all of the things in the Catholic Church at the time because I felt like it was fear-mongering, but she had a very strong sense of God, and that she loved God and at one with God. So it gave her these kind of what I like to call magical senses, if you will. And once she moved on to other realms, she came to me in a dream. She came to me in a dream, and I usually do not have dreams of this nature. And so that was very peculiar. And she was able to convey to me that I said, "What is this?" Like, first of all, I asked her if she was okay, and she said she was okay, and it was like a non-verbal okay. She was not opening her mouth and speaking to me. Also told me when I asked her, "What is this? Is this?" She said, "It is everything and everywhere," and just like everything. That's just the word. It's everything. Consciousness is everything. That's just the message that was delivered in one word. Distill it into its most simplest form. The message was everything. And that was a strong message. My grandmom died probably like 6 years ago, or 7, maybe even more, 8 years ago. The point of the story here is that it was very simply conveyed to me, a few words, and they weren't even spoken. They were like telepathically given to me in the dream. And that was one of the moments, the realizations, where everything I known I had been thinking about, like quantum physics, because I've been thinking about quantum physics for years. Like 10 years ago, I was laying in bed asking my ex at the time, like, "What do you think about if there was quantum level?" And people are like, "What the hell are you talking about? You're a scientist, shut the hell up." Usually that's kind of how that feels. I know that what I'm saying is valid in my mind. And there was also another instance where my grandmother lived next to these people, and I have told this story before if you are not new to my channel. What happened is that my grandmother lived next to these neighbors, and the grandfather passed away, and he left the deed to the property, and nobody knew where the deed to the property was. And they were searching and searching and searching and searching, and nobody could locate this. And one day, my grandmother must have fallen asleep to wondering where that deed was at. And she had a dream And the owner of the house came to her and told her that it was buried in a box underneath the shed. My grandma, the next morning, told the neighbors. They went underneath the shed and it was there. So that is another instance of where you can relay information through data, through other points of consciousness, through dreams. You can relay data through other individuals. Like if you go into a dream and you need a piece of information, you can access that person's consciousness because it is technically all you. It's just like a piece of you. So you would just be accessing another component of information that is of yourself to obtain that information. But it's hard to recognize that, and it's not like something I can easily do. It's not like I just go into the, if I did, I'd be a multi-billionaire. I know it's something that we can do, and I attempt to do it, but I'm not on the status to where I've perfected this. Like, I respect the one guy, David on here, who talks about simulation through like Neville. He put 80% of the simulation work. Yeah, because the simulation, in my opinion, does not want to be discovered. The universe doesn't want you to know how this works. Because if it did, what excitement would it be in life? And most recently, I had a dream, which is giving me deja vu right now, of actually doing what I'm doing right now. I was dreaming about that most recently, and I feel like even me talking to you now is a deja vu moment from the dream I had, not last night, but the night before. I was having dreams about filming or creating like a video like this, but I didn't know what it was. But now I can see that I must have preemptively dreamt it. And then it's weird that his video came up about dreams, and now I'm making a video about dreams. Do you see how that's weird, and that's like consciousness connecting itself somehow? It's the reticular activating system seeking out things. So it brings up the idea of consciousness observing consciousness, because from a scientific perspective, like, who's the third party that is observing to make sure that we're consciously thinking of things correctly? It's like this, I don't know what to call it, double entendre. I don't know. This is a good question from the perspective for me of everything with science, because science is just something that we say, something that says this is measurable and this is repeatable for those things that we feel like we understand. There's so many things that we cannot understand. So like science only understands what they think is a portion of it. Interpretation, because think about it. I mean, this is the case, but aliens could come down here and say, like, you're using math all wrong. Like, what you're doing is you, like, laugh at us. We're fool idiots because we've been doing math backwards or something. That could happen. You don't know. Don't know. And that's just the bottom line. And then he also talks about, like, time and space. The perception of time and space is altered with substances. And I agree. He talks about the use of shrooms to his experiences with shrooms. And shrooms, I definitely think, can give you that kind of awakening experience. I had one, just to talk about it a little bit again, when I was 14. The thing is I didn't know what I was even doing. I did not know any of the concepts that we are talking about in this reality today. I did not know anything about the I am. I did not know anything about conscious creation. Did not know anything heavily about simulation theory or anything of this nature. So there was no outside influences other than the reality of what a 14-year-old girl would have been in, what would have been, the 90s or something. That was my reality. And the fact that I was able to have such a profound experience at that age, not knowing what I was even doing, and also to be able to articulate it in such a way that my mind wasn't like blown out, because I feel like when you have an experience like that at such a young age, you could get like really tripped out about stuff, because my reality during that time was insanely altered. I will link the video, but riff on his part where he also talks about visions. I have had visions I've seen things in the 3D happen that were insane. I saw couches float. I saw faces. I saw my face melt into like 20 different faces. I saw my hand melt. And these were not things that were put into my mind for me to experience. Like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know what the results were going to be. It was such an insane experience looking back on it. So that's why I think my mind has always been open, so far open, because I saw things that normal people would not ever experience. And that gives you a different perspective on reality in general. Because this is not me astral projecting, because when I go into astral projecting, or I can even remote view, like I feel like I can remote view. I feel like anybody can remote view. These are all just skills that if you hone in on in the semi, you can do too. You can be psychic. He talks about intuition and folks not wanting to go into surgery because they feel a type of way. Yeah, go on those hunches. Or that there's something that's not going to go right. Go with it. And whatever circumstances you create in your simulation. So if you're going into a surgery and you have a really bad feeling, maybe don't go with it. But if you feel fine with it, you go ahead. Obviously, plenty of people do surgeries. But he was just trying to say that there's this inner kind of glowing guide, he called it, that lets you know. And for me, it's just your intuition, the simulation telling you maybe don't do this, or maybe this isn't a good idea, but it's your internal GPS reacting with the simulation, because all of us have it. All of us have the brain, the receiver, the connector, and then your heart, I think, has to do with the emotional intuition portion of it. So they all play intersectedly. Again, the simulation doesn't want you to know exactly how this all works, so I'm not going to be able to tell this to you in such a way that every single little piece of it's going to make sense. But hopefully by the end of this, not too long video, it'll all make some sort of sense to you. In that induced state, I was able to produce whatever I thought of instantaneously. And the minute I started getting scared, it withdrew. And he talks about this too, about being scared of things and approaching them. And that's a great thing, to approach your fears, because all they are is just, again, another component of your consciousness that if you just confront, you can be the hero of, or whatever it is that they call it. Like, once you confront the fear, you can move through the fear and realize that it's only a simulation, and the fear is created on purpose to be able to keep you safe. And once you identify that, you know that going to do something great for yourself is keeping you elevated, expanded, getting to the next level. It's not something to be fearful of. There's only fear to be had to help you tune your internal guidance system to be able to not make bad business deals, or be able to see who's shady, or be able to understand who's telling the truth and who's not. Things of this nature as you move through the simulation. So this is, I definitely think, a part of it is your intuition. And while I was in that state of being in another, was in the state of hallucination, I was extremely connected with my intuition, because even at that age, I kept connecting myself back to reality. I kept saying, no, something's going on. Whatever they gave me is making me do this, making me feel this way. And then, of course, they were affirming to me too, oh, this is just a part of whatever, these hippie kids. And I just kept affirming to myself, even at that age, not knowing what any of that was. I kept affirming, this is not real. I'm going to be back shifted into my reality. And I affirmed myself that lots, because what was happening was extremely scary. As a kid at that age, seeing an entire field turn into a river, and then you're rowing in the river and it's really just a field. That's very mind-blowing experience. And it's because I must have accessed the code. That's why I think when people do like DMT and all this stuff, they are screwing with the code, with the phosphenes. I don't know, my checkerboard hypothesis or whatever. You are messing with that component of the plugin to the simulation, so then you are able to tweak the simulation, able to pull in other forms of consciousness, other experiences, other things that you can adapt and mold really easily. Like being able to make my couches float was pretty badass. There was other things that happened as well, but if you were able to access code like that all the time, it would be horrifying, because looking back on it, it was cool, but in the process of it, it was absolutely terrifying. That was terrifying. Standing that, being terrified and horrified and fearful, all of that does affect the simulation, in my opinion. Like dumb things that happen that I don't really talk about. I think I talked about this once before. I was listening to the radio and I was on my way home, and this radio station was talking about what cars were their first cars. And the one girl was starting to talk about her car. Like, she's gonna say that her first car was a red Mitsubishi Eclipse. There was no doubt in my mind that this was gonna happen. And she started talking about her car, and lo and behold, what car do you think she said she had? A red Mitsubishi Eclipse. What are the odds of that car? Maybe there's like a ton of people that have that as their first car. I don't know, but bottom line is, I literally was saying it and then she said it. It was a very bugged out moment for me. Another time I went off of intuition as well was just buying my house. I bought the house sight unseen. And a lot of people thought that was crazy, but I just had this hunch that it was the right one for me, and it was the one that I wanted, and I went with it. And another weird component of that too was when I moved in, neighbor saw one of my decorations of a cat in a Buddha position, and she told me that she took the same exact ornament, but in the dog format. It was the silver version of the statue, but a dog Buddha, and she has it at her house. So another small weird little coincidental thing, which I'm not sure how that works out, or what, you take that however you want, because he also talks about a duck story too, which was really funny to me. He said that I think he saved a duck from being like SA'd, and he felt like he really did that, and he didn't want to, and when he was recanting the story to people thought he was crazy, and then ducks kept cropping up for him. And what this is just your subconscious mind hooking onto something. Maybe, there was something internally turmoil going on with him. I think he was wanting to leave his job at that time. So it could have been the simulation reflecting his consciousness back to him in a internal fight with these ducks. And then he quantum entangled with them. Maybe the thoughts, who knows, he was pissed off and the ducks got pissed off and it riled him up, and he was able to intercept the fight and what have you. I think this is just a component of consciousness playing out in front of itself through different ways, because that's how the simulation works. Emotions may not always work out in certain tangible ways that you think that they will. It could be through like a fight with a duck telling you that you need to do something, and that leads you down a pathway, and then he continued to see ducks. That was like me. I have been asked what's with the rabbits. Shout out to that commenter. He's always good to me in the comments. It's because you go down this rabbit hole where the simulation continuously shows you certain things that are reaffirming. It's a part of like your reticular activating system, but also a part of your consciousness just expressing itself. Just remember that consciousness can express itself in so many different ways through the simulation. And that's the part of trying to control it or get it to like 100%, because I can do things and they will express themselves in the most peculiar ways, but I know that they are connected back to something that I was heavily thinking about, or in the state of, if you will. So these ducks are just another version of his consciousness, maybe playing itself out, trying to direct him and give him the nudges and hunches to tell him maybe to quit his job. Like I said earlier, rabbits, or when I see variations of 3, 6, and 9, or 6, 3, 9, 3, 6, whenever I see those numbers, it's usually when I'm thinking something or saying something that is extremely truthful, and my eyes will catch the number at that time. So that is another way that the simulation is telling you, through like glitches and other ways, and your RAS as well, to tell you, yes, this is the right path. Yes, what you're saying is truth. Yes, maybe you should follow this hunch. Yes, what does this mean? That's like these like taps on the shoulder from the sim, or whatever, like whatever you want to call it, light guides, spirit guides, whatever you want to call it. It's just all a component of consciousness coming in to interact with you in some way. It's about an interesting story with rock, paper, scissors, because I've had this happen too, where I'm always the winner of rock, paper, scissors. I've had this. I wonder how many other people experience this as well. And you just stop playing with the person because you know that they are able to win all the time. And it's like, how's the other person able to win all the time? Are they able to quantum entangle with what you're about to pick, and then they're able to pick it before you do, and then they win every time? Because there's instances of this. For instances where like the person made once or twice because of random, because the simulation does insert randomness, because it does not, again, want to be discovered. Yes, but there are consistencies that you can see. That's a part of as well understanding consciousness, is being able to spot all the patterns and understand how they work and how you can make them work for you. I know everybody enjoyed this video because there's nothing else quite like this on the internet. I'm thinking that maybe what I said to you gave you a little bit of a clearer understanding of what that neuroscientist was talking about through a different perspective, and with perspectives that are very close, or things that have happened that are very close in nature to other experiences in consciousness, again, where it's too coincidental, it's too serendipitous, it's too on the same frequency to where it's not a bigger thing at play. It can't be that crazy. So until the next time, guys, I know you will all continue to manifest magic and resonate on your highest frequency. Mwah. Bye, guys.